Hello, and welcome to my first guide type of video. If you clicked on this, there's probably three categories that you fall into. Either you don't know who I am, you've not seen my videos, and you're thinking, maybe this person can teach me something. It is a guide after all. Or you're someone who does know me, in which case you're probably thinking there's no way this noob will be able to teach me anything about sixes. And in some sense, I think both categories are probably correct. The point of this video is solely to get behind as a flank scout, and that's it. We're essentially trying to be the person that everyone unanimously hates.
Fucking idiot that keeps running through behind.
So, to be clear, this is not a guide on how to play flank scout. Going behind at all times is not a good idea. With that said, there are situations where it's beneficial to go behind as a flank scout, and if you're experienced enough to recognize these situations, then this video might present some useful tips and tricks that you might be able to implement. So to give a bit of background, a number of years ago I was watching I-58, specifically watching Starkey play, and he had this behind playstyle, and this was really the first time that I personally saw it being put into use that effectively. And so I did my best to try and emulate it, essentially. I would watch his demos and so on. In 2018, I stopped playing seriously and took a more casual approach to playing competitive. And so instead of playing this effective way of going behind, I would instead try and play behind all the time. In doing so, I've learned some tricks, and hopefully I will be able to present these here. There are some prerequisites to make this playstyle as effective as possible. Now you'll need a match head, obviously, but nowadays basically everyone has one. You'll need clear sound, and unlock-wise you'll need the winger and the atomizer. I'm going to be talking about the unlocks in a second, and even though I say they're prerequisite, they're not 100% necessary. Most of the things you'll be able to do even without them, but they definitely do help. Throughout this video, I will abide by a maxim, which is, how can I get behind right now? And sometimes the answer is that there's just no way, but a surprising amount of the time, there is actually a way to do it. And the three methods that I'm going to be covering, which I personally use the most, are, well, hiding spots, and then two that I call blind zones and antipathing. I'll consider simple hiding spots and more creative ones. Well, there's no hard line differentiating the two. It's not hard to know which one is which, given some examples. Simple hiding spots are generally well known and don't require much of a setup, whereas the creative ones, they're the opposite. If we consider simple hiding spots, there are some pros and cons. A big pro is that they're usually easily accessible and very easy to think of. This is also their downside, however. Due to their ease of bringing to mind, they're almost always going to be checked when teams are pushing nearby. Personally, I only really use simple hiding spots as a last-ditch effort when I don't have enough time to think of a better resolution to our maxim. Then there are the less common hiding spots, or the creative ones. These are usually harder to get, and they require some prior exploration on maps, but they're far more likely to work. It is here that the atomizer combined with the winger becomes essential, allowing us to reach some places that would not be possible otherwise. While a lot of the same jumps are possible with the basher, and sometimes even easier, the winger combined with the atomizer allows us to do so without heals, and without making bleeding noises. Oftentimes these spots will be wall bugs, and without going into too much detail about how wall bugs work, they're essentially bugs where players stick into walls that are not aligned with the X and Y axis of the map. To successfully wall bug, you want to jump against a wall while pressing into it. At some angles you will feel that you start to stick to the wall, and when you feel this, don't move your mouse but keep pressing into the wall in the same direction. This is easiest done from a stationary position. When you feel the sticking, let go of the movement keys and fall down to the ground without moving your mouse. Then you do the jump again and stick to the wall at the apex of your jump by pressing the exact same movement keys. Some wall bugs allow you to look around as long as you're pressing the movement keys facing into the wall. I'm not sure if these have a name or not. Personally, I call them permabugs. Combining the winger and atomizer allows for extra high wall bugs. First we do a winger double jump, then we set the wall bug. When on the wall, we take out our atomizer and wait for the triple jump delay, let go of our movement keys without touching the mouse and do the third jump and stick the wall bug again. This way we will end up at the height of 2 winger jumps and 1 normal jump. These hiding spots are surprisingly common, and this is because any protrusion from a wall is generally clipped by a diagonal clip brush. To get an idea of where you can hide like this, go on an offline server and use the command r_draw clip brushes too. This will show you where you can find these types of clip brushes. This underscores why the winger combined with the atomizer is so important. It allows for movement options and hiding spots that are wall bugs or not, that are very strong and have a much higher success rate. A rule of thumb is that if vanilla movement mechanics allow you to get to a spot, then it's most likely going to be simple. So equip the winger and atomizer and try and get creative. If you know where to look, you can even come up with new ones on the fly. Hiding requires us to get behind while stationary and silent, waiting for the enemy to pass us. There is, however, a much more active way of getting behind. Simply put, we want to actively be moving into places they can't see. That is their blind zone. Some top-down games make this easy to visualize. The AI has a visual cone. So long as we're not inside the cone, or there is something between us and the AI, we are in the blind zone. This can easily be one-to-one copy to TF2. When FOV is set to 90, on 16:9, the field of view is 106 degrees. Beyond that, everyone can look around, so we complete the circle. Let's imagine there's an object between us and the enemy that we can move around. So long as we move around the object on the opposite side as the enemy does, we can get past unnoticed, no matter where they look.
What the fuck?
This works on just about any geometry, and is an essential tool to get behind unnoticed, as well as moving around when behind unnoticed. Before continuing, let's do a short intermezzo. I want you to count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball to each other. Alright, I have no idea how many times they passed, but our goal is to become the monkey. When people have something to think about, there are 2 effects that we capitalize on. Firstly, it causes tunnel vision, and secondly, it slows down reaction time. This second effect we will call inertia. For now, let's focus on tunnel vision, and we'll talk about inertia later. If we want to move around the map without being seen, it's going to be easiest to do so when the enemies have something to think about. This is similar to how we were busy counting the white players passing. Take this clip for example. I'm gonna go for backup
I got the
again.
gun.
You're
The gun was right side. I'm getting it through left actually, I'm getting it through left.
Is it looking good?
I'm sacking.
I'm dead.
Despite being within the enemy's field of view, we managed to get behind unseen due to everyone being distracted by a roamer. In this clip, however, I'm using the exact same idea even though there's no roamer distracting. The scout is preoccupied by the task of rolling out and is focused on the fight that is going on second. This slight distraction is enough to cause tunnel vision and for us to be filtered out of their periphery. Effectively, selective attention will increase the blind zone caused by FOV even further. If we want to move around unseen, we do so best when there's stuff going on. To maximize this effect, not only do we want our team to take up as much attention as possible, we also want to draw as little attention to ourselves as possible. This usually means that we cannot be shooting people. Shooting people is a direct challenge and immediately will draw their attention, which is not something that we want. With all that said, this is only one tool in our toolbox and people are different. Some players will be far more aware than others. Please don't pick me. Oh my god, he's blind.
Even reverse.
Compared to what we discussed previously of hiding and blind zones, antipathing takes a lot more intuition and game sense. The easiest way to think about it is that antipathing is the same thing as blind zones except on a larger scale. Instead of trying to stay inside of the blind zone of one player, we're trying to stay inside of the blind zone of the entire enemy team and the scale we're working with is the entire map. To make this more clear, let's consider a simple scenario, which is a mid fight on process. Our team has just one mid, and 4 of our players are alive. Our medic, however, has died. On the enemy team, all but the medic and a scout are dead, both of which have left to meet up with their spawners to repush mid. We therefore expect the flank to be empty currently, but for the red team to spawn soon and roll out on the left side of their last. Therefore what we will do is head towards the right side of their last. It might be that we encounter some rogue roamer, and if we do, then we will use blind zone techniques or hiding spots to not be spotted. As the red team passes us heading towards mid, we have successfully gotten behind without them seeing us, and are now ready to back up or do whatever else we want to do when we're behind. We can now see the similarities between Antipathing and blind zone. Essentially it's the same thing on different scales. Blind zones work on the scales of props, whereas Antipathing is on the scale of the map. To do this effectively, we essentially want to create a minimap in our head and try and place where we expect every enemy to be. Usually it is enough to try and keep track of 3 entities, the enemy combo, roamer and flank scout. We need to use all information we can get. We listen to rockets, to sticky jumps, fall damage, any voice lines.
You're gonna be a cat.
Yeah.
I hear him lower.
Are we building? What?
I'm behind him. Furthermore, we can use the cap zone icons to get some more information. For example, if a cap zone goes from 5x to 2x, we expect the combo to be on the move and for the flank to be missing a scout. We can also see if a pack is missing, that means there's probably an enemy player nearby. Keeping track of enemy spawners using the match HUD, together with knowing the standard pathing that people take, will make anti-pathing pretty easy. If you don't know the standard pathing that people take, it's going to be very difficult to move around in areas where you expect there to be no one. Therefore, the most important knowledge is knowing rough timings of different rollouts and understanding how people move. A very general and rough rule of thumb we can use is that post-fights, people tend to move towards capture points, and during rollouts, people tend to move towards health packs. Of course, this also works in reverse, so if we're ever behind and we've been spotted, we should not be moving towards the most expected location. This is arguably outside the scope of this video. When behind, there are a lot of options on what to do, and this could easily be covered in another video twice the length of this one. In all honesty, I'm no authority on the current state of the game, and I will therefore stick to more individual plays with the caveat that most of this will be very dubious. To be more specific, I'm going to be covering 3 things. The first one will be who to target, then I will talk about backcapping, and then lastly, when we actually are behind, how do we make sure that we stay alive. Without further ado, let's begin with looking at who to target. When fighting from behind, there will most likely be no teammate around to help us. Therefore, all fights are ideally fought on our own terms. To maximize our chances of success, we aim to kill unexpected, isolated targets. Often this means killing spawners on the rollout, which, thanks to the match HUD, tends to be easy. This is especially true for the demo. When rolling out, the path they take is from health pack to health pack, which makes it very easy for us to set up along one of these health packs, where the demo is usually kind enough to bring himself to us. Another isolated target will be cappers. It is well known that cappers will inevitably tab out and shuffle songs and check their YouTube homepage. In their unaware state, we are able to sneak up from behind and get a quick meat shot. Generally, this only really happens when you've gone behind unnoticed, and depending on the timing, this can sometimes completely nullify an advantage push by the enemy team. Next, we want to look for targets when our team has some advantage. When the enemy team knows you're behind, you can attack from a safe distance before your team starts the push. Doing so will cause people to turn around, and you'll create space for your team. Here you're not going for anyone specific, but trying to make sure you spot openings. Once your team does push, they will probably draw a lot of attention, allowing us to re-engage. And then we can once again try and isolate targets. If we end up behind without the enemy team knowing, however, our goal will instead be to position ourselves at the exit of the enemy medic. It is therefore important to know the default holds to have a basic idea of where to go. Once your team does push, if you ask your team when and where the medic is leaving, you will often find him backpedaling towards you. Where are they? Where are they?
Choke. They're leaving choke.
Please.
Where are they? Where are they?
We try to maximize our chances by getting the jump on people, but this will of course not always be possible. So like for any playstyle, having good deathmatching abilities will never be harmful. Backcapping has a vast range of strategies that I can't do justice in this video. Out of anything we are able to do from behind, backcapping generally has the most impact. To be precise about which point I'm talking about in this section, I'm going to refer to our second as 2 and the enemy second as 4. The most effective points to backcap are 2, 4 and last, and due to capping so quickly, I'm not going to say much about backcapping last. After getting behind, there might be a fight, or you just win the round. Instead, we will direct our attention to backcapping 2 and 4. The timing of when we step on point is crucial. If we go back to our monkey example, we will consider the second consequence we talked about, which I decided to call inertia. Take a ball that is rolling forward. The heavier the ball is, the harder it's going to be to make it stop and have it roll the other way. In physics, this is called inertia. For us, inertia is increased with attention instead of mass. Much like a rolling ball, the more attentive a team is at a certain task, the longer it will take them to direct their attention towards something else. To look at specifics, let's go back to the situation we had in the antipathing part on process mid. We want to maximize our chances of capturing 4, so make sure to wait until the red team has fully committed their attention to mid. If we were to step on point just as they leave, the red team, which at that point isn't very preoccupied, would quickly react and deal with us. We instead want to wait until the mid push is at peak intensity, and only then step on point, giving us the biggest time window as well as taking away focus from whatever is happening in mid, which in turn helps the rest of our team. Just back up, I'm backcapping.
It's not a good trade.
Let them in, just back up with the
they're
trade.
in.
We'll leave it. I'm not using it.
Do you want me to block?
We need to get
Yeah,
blocked.
whatever.
Yeah? You want to
Let's
use it
go
then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful though, because if you start capping too late, you will be outcapped by the higher multipliers. On its surface, backcapping 4 may seem like a solo play, but in actuality, your whole team plays a role in making it successful. Let's now move on to looking at backcapping 2. If there was ever a play to get your team upset with you, it would be this one. With that said, backcapping 2 is in my opinion a rather unexplored option for this at last defense. The idea is to give the attacking team 3 viable options. The first option is to fully commit to the last push with all 6 players, which is now defended by 1 less off glass, but you have circa 10 seconds to execute and cap. The second option is sending 1 player back to stop you and try and execute the last push with 5 players. And lastly, the third option is sending 2 or more players back to stop you. For the first option, we simply hope that our team is able to stall for long enough on last for us to be able to get the cap off. The biggest downside to this is that when this fails, we do look very stupid. The most important part when trying to do this is when we step on point. If we start too early, they won't be in the push yet, and if you start too late, you will lose the last push before you're done capping. For the second option, we will take the 1v1. To make a rough estimation, let's assume there's a 50% chance of holding a 5v5 last push, as well as a 50% chance of winning a 1v1. With these odds, our team roughly has a 75% chance of holding last. Essentially what we're doing is we're hedging our bets. For the last option, we will simply run. We have managed to pull 2 or more players back, giving our team a far greater chance of holding last. If the players chasing us would turn around and go back to last, then we do the same, we go back to point. Either they will commit to last, or they will once more come back and chase us. Regardless, we just repeat the process following our flowchart. Beyond the very limited stuff I've talked about here, there's a plethora of strategy you can use when it comes to backcapping. Most of it, however, is a bit more team play involved, as most strategies are, and so as to not digress too far from topic, I won't be talking about them further. Finally, we will conclude by talking about how to survive when we are behind. Generally, this is really easy to do, as all we really have to do is stay as far away from the enemy team as possible. Unfortunately, this does also in turn make us completely useless. The closer to the enemy team we are, the more opportunities we will have to do what has been mentioned previously. Ideally, this will go well enough for us to be able to spot our opportunities and then execute. When we pick the wrong door, this will either result in a fight or as is more often the case, us getting chased. This is also what happens when the enemy team inevitably gets sick of our shit and decide to send players back to clean us up. Surviving when being chased mostly comes down to having good movement and being unpredictable. The winger and atomizer once more help a great deal, allowing us to do jumps that would otherwise not be possible to get away.